Welcome to the Rooted in the Word podcast. I'm Rob Armstrong, the pastor at Harrisburg Baptist Church, and I am excited to spend this time with you. And today I feel like we need to address a big misunderstanding. This is episode 31. We are reading week 8 of our reading this year in the Bible, and we are in Exodus 19 through about Exodus 30. And there is a major misunderstanding that I would like to take some time and to clarify. And that misunderstanding really goes in kind of two directions. One of them would be there's a pretty significant misunderstanding in one of the 10 commandments. And in big picture, many of us misunderstand why we even have the 10 commandments, what their purpose is, why God gave them to us, and how they even work in our lives. And so I want to begin by focusing on just the 10 commandments themselves. And in getting ready for our time together in this podcast, I wrote some things down and wanted to make sure that I communicate them clearly. So one, when it comes to the 10 commandments, and you were to ask why do we have them? What's their purpose? What are we supposed to be getting out of the 10 commandments all the way back then and even today? Well, one, they remind and they reveal who God is. So one, they remind us of who God is because he gave them to us as his people. And in giving them says, listen, you're my people. I'm your God. Here is how I would have you to live. But they also reveal who he is because they are built on who he is, and they are built around what he deserves and how he would have us to relate to him as a holy and distinct and self-sufficient and all-powerful God. They set us apart. Like God's people are told that because we belong to him, one, they reveal who he is, but they also set us apart. We're his, we belong to him, therefore there's a way in which we should live. You may often hear people talk about following God as an incredibly restrictive and taking away life. And look at those rules you have to follow. That takes all the fun out of life. You can't do what you want and how you feel. But the 10 commandments, they don't take away our freedom. They are given to us in our freedom. God delivered the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. And then in their newfound freedom, he gives them rules, laws, a way in which they are to live. And so these aren't restrictive. This is what free living looks like. This is what it looks like to live free because of what God has done for us in saving us and redeeming us. And not only that, when you think about these ways to live, there are some that will twist them and think, well, these are the things I have to do for God to then save me or for God to then approve of me. But these are not the 10 things to do to guarantee your salvation. These are the ways God would have those who he has saved to live. Like our reason for the 10 commandments is not to be saved. Our reason for living according to the 10 commandments is because we have been saved. That's how God sets it up with Israel. I am your God, the God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Now this is how my people live. They're really for us needed. Like we need these because without God telling us who he is, and without God telling us how we should live on our own, in our sin, and in our selfishness, and in our clouded way of viewing things, we are not going to get it right. So as he frees us, he then clarifies for us how we are to live, what he wants of us as his people. So the 10 commandments, they reveal who God is. They set us apart because we've been set apart to him. They also remind us of our need for clear thinking. We are not able to do this on our own. The reason we follow these commandments is not so that we can be saved, but because we have been saved. And at the end of our building of life, these serve for us even today as the foundation of our ethics as Christians. They serve as a moral foundation for us to build our lives on as God's people. And so They're often misunderstood, though. They're often seen as the way for God to approve of you or him to be willing to save you, or they're often seen as oppressive and restrictive, but instead these are given to those who are free so that we have a clear way of knowing how to live in our freedom, and they are not so we can be saved. They are what those of us who have been delivered and saved do as a response to our deliverance and our freedom. I said that there was a misunderstanding, though, regarding one of them. The truth is, there could easily be, depending on our circumstances and situations, misunderstandings about all of them. But for certain, I find a significant misunderstanding with commandment number 3, the commandment that says, "You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain." Now, I think most people seem to understand that we don't curse in the name of God. Like that's, well, I would say most people know that we shouldn't. Many people do. You can't walk through a grocery store or Walmart or be watching something on TV, or it's just constantly in our culture we hear his name used in an expletive manner or in a weighted cursing type manner, a disrespectful and irreverent way. And so we have clear instructions in the book of Leviticus that we are not to do that. His name is holy, and it should be revered and used as such. So I think we get that. I think most people get that we are not to do that with the Lord's name. But not only that, I think we know that we aren't to swear by his name. Leviticus also teaches us that we are not to swear by his name falsely. For instance, we are not to use his name as a way to try to convince people to believe false statements or ill intentions. We're not to use him falsely. And that also is, I think, makes most of the time makes sense to people, but most people just leave it there. Like, don't use his name in an unholy or expletive manner, and don't ever attach his name to something that you would say that isn't true. But God says we should not take his name in vain, not just not say his name in vain. And the wording that's there, that taking, is more like a bearing, like I would wear his name or identify myself actually as his. And so when God says, "You shall not take my name in vain," it's because his name is massive. It is significant. It's in fact how we know who he is. His name is just not a nickname we've given to him. It is how he has communicated himself and revealed himself. It is who he is, not just what he is called. And so when we take his name and bear his name, we are to represent his name. And so when God tells the Israelites, "Don't take my name in vain," the word vain there is empty or nothingness or without meaning. Like, don't take or bear my name with nothing behind it. That we would actually hear him saying, "Hey, if you say you're mine, then your life should resemble that you are mine." That it would be like wearing a jersey. Like, if you're going to wear the jersey and get in the game, then you're going to play the game. Play the game for the team whose jersey you're wearing. And God says, "Don't take my name in vain." You can't just take my name and coast through life. He said, "I'm not going to allow you to be guiltless just because you say you're mine. If you are his," he says, "then let your life be mine." Be sincere, be genuine. It is a command against hypocrisy that he gives us. So number 3 is do not be a hypocrite. Do not say you're mine, but don't in any way live like you are mine. Don't take it in vain. Don't let my name be meaningless. Don't let my name be worthless or empty, because his name isn't worthless. His name isn't empty. His name isn't meaningless. There is no name higher than his name. There is no one greater or more powerful or more majestic or holy or righteous other than God. So when he says, "Don't take my name in vain," don't act like it means nothing. Don't live as if there's no significance to who he is. Instead, as his people, whom he has called out, whom he has set apart, delivered, and brought to himself. He calls us to wear his name so that our lives would bring glory to his name, because that is what his name deserves, is glory. So the Ten Commandments, which help us to know his holiness and to bring our lives in line with him and how he would have us to live, even inside them, he makes sure to remind us, hey, I am holy. And my name, when attached to you as my people, don't waste it. Don't waste my name. Don't make my name empty, because my name isn't empty. And he says, and I won't leave you guiltless if you make my name empty. He's going to hold us accountable if we leave his name empty in our lives. So as his, he says, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. If you belong to him, live inside this newfound, clarified freedom of how to live that he's given us, and live for him in a way that demonstrates his goodness, his grace, his glory to the world around us. Let your life be full of his name rather than empty. It's been good to be with you on our Rooted in the Word podcast, and I will catch you again next time. If you're looking to serve and to be a part of what we are doing here at Harrisburg on missions, we have our missions book out with all of our trips and opportunities and even things that you need to do to be ready to go on our trips. You can find those around the building starting this week. I hope you'll be a part of what the Lord is doing here as we share the gospel and seek to make disciples of all nations. And I'll see you again next time.